All right, ladies and gents, welcome back to history class. So, today we're going to be talking about medieval Africa and the kingdoms that existed at this time. So, just so you know, here is the SOL standards that are going to be covered with today's lecture. And then, of course, we're going to have some vocabulary. So, go ahead and take a moment, pause, and look at this. Right, our timeline. Go ahead and you'll want to take a quick look at this as well. Some of this is what's going to be going on, like dealing with near the time of Egypt and Rome, Persia, all the stuff that we would have talked about, much earlier on. All right. So, the geography and environment of the African continent. So, there are a number of regions that we need to look at. Africa is the second largest continent, and there are 5 distinct regions that need to be talked about. So, looking at that map, in the north we have North Africa, and then the red is West Africa, yellow is Central Africa, blue is Southern Africa, and of course we have the lined region, which is East Africa. Madagascar is its own thing, so it does not count as one of these regions because it is an island off the southeastern coast. Now, the cultures that develop, at least early on in Africa, they follow a couple of different things. Develop where there's a lot more rain, and it's going to be near lakes. So basically, any sources of water is where we're going to see cultures first start to develop. Now, Sub-Saharan Africa is basically what we're talking about. So anything that is below the Saharan Desert, which, looking at that map, if you can follow my cursor, it is basically cutting right across through here. So this dotted line, we're going to be focusing mainly on stuff that is south, below this dotted black line. Okay. So, civilizations in sub-Saharan West and East Africa. Trade is going to be very important to these areas for their culture and for the religions that tend to develop. All right. So, states and empires flourish in Africa during the medieval period. The ones we're going to be looking at are Ghana, Mali, and Songhai in West Africa. And in the east and south, we're going to be looking at Aksum and Zimbabwe. Hopefully one or two of those sound a little familiar to you guys, because 2 or 3 of them are modern-day country names now. All right, so all those kingdoms that we said the names of before, here is where they're located. Now, if you look at West Africa, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, they overlap each other. This is because they are in control of their territories at different periods during African history. So just bear that in mind. Now, the climate of Africa, as you can see from this map and chart, it is very, very different depending on where you are. The further north and further south you go, we're getting into the more dry and arid desert type areas, right? And the closer you get to the center, you're going to start getting into the more hot and humid areas, and even some colder areas, like if you're going into like Madagascar or, into closer to the Congo rainforest and jungles of the center. Okay. Ghana, the first one we're talking about. Now, this map, it is one dealing with Mali, but basically what you need to know is Ghana is where Mali looks like a backwards L, like this right angle. It is in that area where Ghana develops. So it is one of the richest trade kingdoms ever to exist in West Africa because it is between the salt mines and of the Sahara and the gold mines of the more tropic regions. All right, so they would have taxes and for anyone who enters or leaves the kingdom. So they're making money hand over fist. They're getting it from salt, from gold, from people coming in and out doing their trading business. They would have caravans going between cities in North Africa and Ghana, crossing the Sahara Desert. And salt is perhaps one of the most important trade goods that Ghana had. Just think of some of the things that salt are used for. Yes, seasoning food, but it is also used as a food preservative so that you can dry out food and it will last a lot longer, which makes, traveling a lot more feasible because you can bring more food with you because it won't rot. All right. Ghana, they had their height of economic and political powers in the 800s and 900s on this side of the year zero. Salt and gold being the most important thing moving through Ghana, and they would be trading with the Islamic regions of the Middle East. So there's going to be, their goods going to the Middle East and philosophies and religion coming back, as well as, other trade goods that they wanted from the Middle East. All right. So the Ghanaian trade centers of their empire are going to start being attacked by the Almoravids, which was a Muslim group in North Africa, and they would be picking away at it until the kingdom basically just falls apart, which is going to give rise to Mali. This was a breakaway from Ghana and would actually be greater in size than Ghana, typically is how we believe it laid out. They're one of their earliest kings, Sudiata Keita. He's going to restore the trade routes that had been destroyed by those North African invaders that basically took out Ghana. And he's going to begin the gold and salt trades again, as well as revamping the agriculture. So they're going to start producing more food a lot faster. But while he did a lot of good stuff, Mansa Musa was the greatest king of Mali. He is going to open and protect the trade routes to an even greater extent than anybody before him, and he really brings in a lot of Islamic culture. So we're going to see a lot more Islamic influence. We're going to start having en masse converts to Islam during Mansa Musa's reign. Right? He himself would make a pilgrimage to Mecca in the early 1300s, and he would even get an architect to build mosques and a palace in Timbuktu, which was the capital of Mali. And when he died, the empire comes under attack from the north and the south because, hey, who doesn't want a piece of all the money that's going through that place? So, yeah, that's pretty much it for Mali. Songhai. Now, the Songhai, who were more of the southern region of Mali, so they're the ones attacking from the south, rebellious and all that, they are going to conquer Timbuktu and Djenne, but Timbuktu being the most prominent city that they take over. They are going to have as ruler from 1493 to 1528 a guy named Askia Muhammad, who would come to power when Muslim populations really started coming into prominence and overthrew the non-Muslim kings in Songhai. So this is a big rebellion that happens within that people. All right. Muhammad, he's going to introduce laws based on the holy book of Islam, the Quran. He is also going to be overthrown by his own son, which is going to lead to a lot of military strife and is going to weaken the government. And Songhai will be conquered by the year 1600 by the Moroccan people, which are the northwestern coast, just across the Straits of Gibraltar from Spain. Now, Aksum. This is on the east side of Africa. This is like the southern Red Sea region, as you see right here, the lighter shaded tan. All right, just north of Ethiopia. All right, they're going to have actually a bit of Roman influence. So Christianity is going to become the big religion in Aksum. But they're not going to stick around too long after the 600s because there's going to be a rise of Islam happening in that area. But the Christians who were in charge, they're going to move further south into Ethiopia, which has even today a very strong Christian influence religiously. Now, if any of you remember your Bible lessons, there is somebody called the Queen of Sheba. She would be interacting a lot with King Solomon. All right. Now, she was a queen from Aksum, which, like the Ethiopia region, she would go to Solomon's court often, and they would question each other with riddles. They had a lot of actual, like, intellectual, like, interactions with them. Though there is rumor in the historic community that they actually had more of a romantic relationship as well, and possibly even a illegitimate child between them. Not a lot of evidence supporting it, but there is the possibility that that happened. Now, East Africa. We are going to have some things different there, besides the kingdoms, that doesn't happen on the West Coast. Now, monsoons, they affect the east coast of Africa. These are these huge rainstorms that happen. It'll be in certain areas. As you can see following the red line of the map, it bounces around. It doesn't hit everywhere, but it can hit most of these places. And so we're going to see in East Africa, we're going to get trade settlements that start to turn into city-states, kind of like the ancient Greeks had city-states. We start to see some of that in East Africa. Zanzibar, which is an island, as you can see, it's more in the center of that map, just off the coast near Kilwa. They are going to be an important trade center. They get sailors from Southeast Asia, as well as India and China, and of course from all around the east coast of Africa. Everybody's going there. Big trade center. All right, moving on. Arab merchants, when they came into some of these African kingdoms, would marry local women, converting them to Islam, having families, and that would be having Islamic influence and helping spread it. We're going to have the language of Swahili coming in, which is an East African coastal area language. We're also going to have rulers being either having Arab ancestry, and we're also going to have the African chieftains. We're going to have all of this intermingling with powers ruling the East African regions. All right, real quick, let's talk about the Bantu. So this is dealing with Zimbabwe. So the Indian Ocean trade would start to go inland, contributing to the rise of the wealthy Bantu kingdoms in Central and Southern Africa. Now, one of the main ones that we need to talk to is one that would be called Great Zimbabwe. This would be from 1000 to 1500. They would have a number of stone fortresses all over their territory. So they know how to protect themselves. They know how to deal some damage to the enemy. So if you look at the modern map of Africa, where Zimbabwe is now is basically the location of where Great Zimbabwe was back in medieval Africa. All right. So this was a very prosperous empire, and they're going to have a lot of control over trade routes, dealing with the gold mines that are in that area. Now there's going to be in the 1400s a number of civil wars that are going to happen that are going to disrupt trade. We're going to start seeing a decline economically, and then agriculturally, things are going to start falling apart. And though we are going to get the Changamire Empire taking over Great Zimbabwe and building the biggest fortress that they had. And that's also when the Europeans are going to start getting involved, because they start getting involved in the late 1400s, early 1500s. And that's kind of it for the great kingdoms of Africa on the East Coast, because we're going to start getting like Portuguese influence in trade, looking for gold, ivory, and copper. All right. That's going to do it for the medieval African kingdoms for today. All right, guys, let's take a look at Japan. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to see this is our SOLs that are going to be met. We're also going to, and you can pause here, take a look at the vocabulary dealing with Japan. So go ahead and do that real quick, and then we'll move on. All right. Timeline. Basics of what's going on here. You can pause and take a look at it. Not too bad. Now, the geography and how it's influenced the development of Japan. So, Japan is actually quite mountainous. There are 4 main islands. They all formed because of rising mountains out of the sea. So we're going to have Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku, and Kyushu. So the Sea of Japan is going to separate Japan from the rest of Asia, meaning like North and South Korea and China. So they are quite close to China and the Korean Peninsula, and so there's going to be a lot of influence between these countries on each other. Now, China is going to be the biggest influence on Japan, but let's take a look at how that is. So, writing, architecture, and the religion of Buddhism are going to be the 3 biggest influences from China on Japan. So, here's an example. So, they both use calligraphy as a writing style. And as you can see between these examples from China and Japan, there is some similarity, but some differences as well in what they do for writing. I know to us who are in America, this doesn't look different at all, but to people who can write and read and understand this, yes, there is a difference. Now, architecture, they use a lot of exposed woods. It's going to be painted in China, whereas in Japan, it's not really painted. It's more of like a clear coat, like a varnish or a stain. Houses in Japan are also going to use a lot more airflow because trying to keep cool in the summers, whereas China, not as much. Buddhism, basically the same no matter which country you're in. Now, Japan is going to also practice feudalism. And right here we have our basic breakdown of what this is. So at the top, we're going to have the emperor and the shogun. These are the highest ranks that a person can possibly have in Japanese society during their medieval period. The shogun would actually hold most power, and the emperor would be a puppet or a figurehead. And the shoguns, they were the military leaders. So, yeah, they had people do whatever they wanted because they controlled the army. All right. Daimyos, these are the warlords, like the governors of the territories or the states within the kingdom of Japan. All right. So the equivalent would be like they're the barons and the dukes and the counts of like medieval Europe. And these samurai, they're the equivalent of like the knights. They're the highest, they're like high-ranking soldiers, professional soldiers. And then, of course, the peasants are peasants no matter where you are. They're the lower class of society. They do all the manual labor. They do the farming. They do all the different crafts such as blacksmithing and baking and carpentry, all that stuff. Right. Shinto. This is a religion that is pure Japan. Right? They deal a lot with the forces of nature and ancestor worship. Uh, it also has with worshiping the emperor. They're like, a heavenly figure on earth, and they deserve that respect. And Shinto actually means the way of the gods, because there is a polytheistic element to Asian religion as well, at least with Japan. Right? The clans, they would believe that they're descended from a common ancestor, but that would be something like an animal or a god. So there would be like, the boar clan, the dragon clan, things like that. And they would have that as like their symbol. Right? They would also, their worship of ancestors, it's a special like kami or spirit. So they believe that like these spirits would pass and dwell within people and animals and even objects. So a lot of things were very sacred and had some rituals to go with them. Right? It actually moved quite well in flow with Buddhism. Right. So by 1200s, Buddhism has spread into the nobility and common people of Japan, and it's dealing about with harmony in nature and going through that harmony to reach enlightenment. And so that's kind of how it works so well with the Shinto religion. Right, so that's where we're going to end Japan. All right, that's going to do it for today. Come back tomorrow and we will be starting talking about the Central American and South American cultures, like the Maya, Aztec, and the Inca.